All right, hype season is starting to roll, and we are back. Pretty much everybody, like it's 97% of players plus, took a break from this league. It was a tough one to try to get through, but with the hype season going on, it is time to get excited. And we are all guilty of being man, they have us by the eyes of zeal, I guess you could say. So hype train is rolling. They're showing a lot of quality life stuff, and they're teasing that maybe Melee might even be good. We are getting excited. All of us collectively are getting excited for 3.25. And I just want to spend a few minutes today talking to you guys about my hopes and fears about next league. Basically, whatever I'm wishing for, the opposite of that happening or not happening is going to be what I'm afraid of. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Okay, so first up, as I just hinted at, Melee buff / meta change. Melee's been in a rough, weird spot for a long time. There are always some skills that are playable and decent, sometimes even borderline meta if you look at Bone Shatter. But as a whole, the quality of life of Melee, there's not very good, and there's a whole category of Melee, Slam specifically, that, yeah, I've seen some volcanic fissure of snaking, some of the earthquake stuff, but like, you know, a lot of the traditional archetypes of Melee have been just out of favor for a really long time. And I would love to just see a mix-up. I'm not going to call out anything specific. Besides, I would love to see Chaos Dot coming back. They kind of teased that in one of the teasers where they showed Essence Drain being used a little bit, or at least on the skill bar. So yeah, I would just love to see kind of a mix-up right there with the meta. Melee coming back, being really fun, really good quality life, and competitive would just be healthy for the game. It has that primal feeling of just, I take big axe, I hit something, I bonk it, it dies, and it gets you in that primal Cro-Magnon DNA kind of coming out. Next up, I would love to see some buffs / changes to some ascendancies. Specifically, I'm going to call out the ones that I think are the weakest right now. I think Assassin and Gladiator are by far the weakest ascendancies right now. You know, Assassin has all of the poison nodes where there's some clever stuff with it. Specifically, you can do like Trickster Poison and use Forbidden Flame and Flesh and grab Toxic Delivery, whatever. Gladiator is just, I don't even need to go into it. He has 2 decent nodes and a 3rd node that's like pretty good, that generally you just Forbidden Flame and Flesh. You can play Bleed Slayer and kind of take bleed pops from that. Block and Retaliation, they're just not in a really good place. Specifically, his block nodes got nerfed a couple leagues ago, and it's just in a really bad place. And then Raider, for me, I think Raider really is just a quality of life ascendancy. There are applications of it. You throw a ton of money at it, it just feels really good, goes super fast, but it just doesn't have that. I put Raider in like C tier, maybe even D tier. So, yep, would love to see Raider just get something. Like, honestly, if you just give her a more damage multiplier somewhere. The node that I would love to see buffed, I'm just looking up really quickly. Yeah, Avatar the Veil, the Avoid Elemental Ailments, and the Exposure. That's just generally pretty weak these days, particularly the Exposure one. If you're doing attack on a Raider, you're usually going to be doing the attacks have a 25% to invert resistances, which will kind of take over a lot of that. And then you're just going into something like Assassin's Mark, Poacher's Mark, Sniper's Mark, something like that. Those are the 3 absolutely need to be looked at ascendancies, in my opinion. There are applications of them, but yeah, they definitely need some love. And then my own personal bias vote, I would love to see Occultist get some love a little bit in some way. Like, Occultist has applications, absolutely. Like, there's meta builds right now, like Hexblast Mines that you play on Occultist. But I think her overall design just feels kind of weak, particularly the way that they've removed Wicked Ward. They moved around. They like took out Malevolence. They really changed her in a way that, yes, there's some really interesting applications for her, but honestly, you can play Elementalist and take Forbidden Flame and Flesh, and then that's honestly better a lot of the time anyway. So yeah, would just really love to see Occultist get kind of a redesign that kind of makes her feel more cohesive and fit the theme of the character. All right, next up, what I really, really want, and this kind of goes into the next point as well, but I'm going to separate these. I would really, really love to see a positive endgame rework / change. The biggest failure I think most people agree on is the application of T17s and the way that they reworked old existing league mechanics, stuff like that. A lot of the FOMO and a lot of what people didn't like this league was just seeing what you could do with T17s, but how few builds could actually do them. Playable in a way that people enjoyed. I understand that friction is the thing that matters. Like, you need to overcome a challenge, right? I think friction is an awful word, because sometimes they do things like 64 corpses instead of 88 and whatever, we'll get into that in a second. Like, there's friction that just feels bad. But challenges, overcoming something difficult and getting a commensurate reward, that is rewarding. That is what you play for. That is what exactly gives you that dopamine. T17s just are not balanced in the right way. On release, you couldn't even use a Chaos Orb to reroll them. Most of those T17 mods specifically feel really bad or brick so many builds. I get the investment. They want you to spend 50 chaos per map or 100 plus to get a good roll on it. But then the fact that is like the prescriptive way to play. They are telling you to play that way because the way it interacts with Magic Find, Back to Basics, those more Scarab multipliers, all of that, it became the way to play. And you can make great money in T16s. But honestly, the best farming that I found in T16s was farming T17s to sell to people that were running T17s, because that's where the big money really was. And then because of that, or on top of that, rather, the fact that Heist and Betrayal and a lot of the other league mechanics, the regular ones, don't feel that rewarding in T16s. A lot of the casual farms are just like, not specifically dead, but they just don't feel good to do. When you have something that has, the Veiled Orb just feels like something that you're farming for. And then you get a dry spell, you can kill 10 Katarinas in a row and not get one. And it just feels really bad because all the other rewards got reworked in a way that you basically don't want to do them, except for like the Gravicius craft. So yeah, I would love to see old league mechanics getting kind of reworked and kind of fixed a little bit. Personally, I would love to see bossing and kind of addition with that kind of like fits in is some sort of lore progression. And I'm actually really afraid, this is probably one of my biggest fears, is the teasing of the Settlers of Calgar thing. Maybe that's like a side lore thing, but they haven't done an endgame rework in 2.5 years at this point. I think it was Arch Nemesis League, something around then, when they actually added Exarch and Eater and, added some sort of endgame thing. And they used to do that every year. And, maybe we were spoiled back then and they can't do that because of PoE2 resources right now. But yeah, I miss every year getting excited and just be like, okay, we got new bosses. We got like the whole world is expanding and getting more developed, and like, oh, Cirrus and the Conquerors. And like, that is just so cool. And for me, the actual theme and the feel of the game gets improved whenever that stuff happens. Like when they added Shaper and Elder and all that, that was mind blowing actually at the time. And I think that is one of that, on top of the mapping system, is the best things that they've ever done in PoE. And then, with the league schedule. And I think that's something that's been really left in the dust for a long time. And like the current Atlas tree is cool. Like it's really functional and it's probably the most enjoyable to interact with because you can just choose your own adventure. But it does kind of take away from the old fun. Just the character, like the feel and the theme of, okay, we're chasing the Conqueror. Like I hated leapfrogging in the Conquerors. I don't want that to come back. But like, chasing Shaper and Elder around the Atlas, and just like the fact that there was a little bit of, I don't know, it felt like a meta progression or something, along with the theme and the lore and the feel of the game. I don't know, more and more as I'm getting a little bit older here, I would love to, that's just what I really kind of attach myself to a little bit more. It really feels like I'm playing something that's like the interactive fiction a little bit more, instead of just, a thin graphical veil on top of a spreadsheet. And yeah, like especially after playing Baldur's Gate and Hollow Knight and games like that recently, yeah, it's in Elden Ring, right? Feels much more meaningful to me, and I feel like that's something that kind of feels empty. Like we used to have that, and now it kind of feels empty. That's the third point. Just some sort of endgame rework. The number one thing is fix T17s, but I would love to see some like lore and theming. And then the very last one is I would love to see a good league mechanic. I'm not going to go into extreme detail here. My previous video on this league I went into all the detail about what was wrong with Necromancy, or Necropolis rather. Necromancy's great. I don't want nothing against necromancers. I'm friends with plenty of necromancers, but the league mechanic itself, Necropolis, was bad. All flames were like kind of cool, but then the mandatory mechanic, and God, Necropolis crafting is one of the worst systems they've ever made. Least fun, most painful, highest friction thing they've ever added to the game. It's up there. It's up there with the old Arch Nemesis mechanic, where we had to use a third-party UI just to figure out what recipes we had. Very similar to that. I want Ideally, something that's fun, intuitive, simple in the maps. And, Arrow actually put out a video this morning that's really good on that. I'll link it below if I remember. But yeah, just look up Arrow's video. It's just a 6-minute video. Yeah, something that's just fun. You do it in the maps and kill monsters, get loot. And it's something, adds a theme, is kind of fun. And then I would actually love something that's also good outside of maps, like Sanctum. I didn't really like Toda. I feel it was flawed, but I liked the idea of it. Something like Totem, Sanctum. That's like fun to do, but it's still at its core, it's kill monsters and get loot. Like you don't want to spend hours like a necro. I'm gonna keep getting this word wrong. A necropolis craft. I haven't even said the word in so long. I forgot how to say it. A necropolis craft took minimum like 3+ hours, and that was with me getting help from Twitch chat, trading corpses to me and everything. And 3 hours of not killing monsters is just unfun for the vast majority of people. Some people are hideout warriors and they can do that, but I think that's a vast minority of players. And yeah, I shouldn't say vast minority, a tiny minority. I think the vast majority of players really just want to kill monsters, get loot, and feel like they're progressing their character, feel like they're doing something that's not just interacting in a purely economic sense. So there we go. Those are my 4 big asks. Melee buff / meta change, Ascendancy changes, positive endgame rework, and good league mechanic. I want those things to happen. If they don't happen, that is my fear. But I am really excited to be back. And yeah, I hope you guys join me on Thursday. I think it's like 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday on stream, twitch.tv/Subtractem. We will be going over it in all the detail we can. And a video will come out after that with my thoughts. And hopefully this stuff, as long as 2 of these things, most important is a good league mechanic. If they don't do that, good league mechanic and endgame rework, if they hit those 2, we'll be okay. But the other ones I think would be really, really good and healthy for the game. Yeah, so we're back. I'm really excited. Next league start's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be really special and different. It's going to be some group play. It's going to be something pretty unique for me, and I hope you guys are excited to join me along with the ride. So it's gonna be really cool. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Goodbye.